we're going to look at easy content curation using vWriter's Be Everywhere system. So we will have a look at, firstly, what does content curation mean? What do you actually curate? So what type of content should you look for, and how do you kind of find content related to your niche to curate for your own followers? And then we'll look at the various content curation options within vWriter.com. I'm being quite careful how I say curate because it sounds very similar to create. So apologies if it doesn't come across too clearly. So content curation. Done for you curated content feeds, using feed mixes, drag and drop curation. That's kind of neat capability within vWriter. Doing content curation through publishing channels, and also cross-stream publishing. So basically publishing what you find on one social profile and kind of moving it over to another profile. You might find something that you published on one social network that you want to kind of publish fairly quickly onto another one. So that's just a way to do that, which we will have a look at. So in terms of what content curation means, according to Wikipedia, content curation is the process of collecting, organizing, and displaying information relevant to a particular topic or area of interest. So it's basically finding content that is relevant to your own niche, relevant to your own industry, and that people who you want in your own audience would be interested in. So you're basically acting as kind of the main point of focus for people who want to find out information about your niche or industry. So it doesn't have to be your own content. It mainly refers to kind of content from third-party sources. So you kind of create your own content and curate content from elsewhere to provide kind of a main source of content for people interested in your industry. In terms of why you should start curating content as well as creating content, basically people are saturated with content. It's difficult to know what content to look at because there's so much out there, and it's difficult to know what's authoritative and what should be believed and so on. So in terms of positioning yourself as a thought leader and as an influencer, it basically gives you the job of cutting through all that fuzz and finding the information that people should be looking at, the best content out there that relates to your niche, that relates to your industry. And by doing that, people will come to trust you as kind of the thought leader and the influencer within your industry. And rather than trying to find out all the information themselves and not being too sure where to look or who to trust, they'll come to you as their thought leader, essentially. One thing to bear in mind is that it does take time to build up that position, but it's certainly worth doing. As the quote there shows from searchenginejournal.com, your online reputation and social media presence will be even more important in 2015. And content curation is kind of a really important part of that. And it's just important to get that mix between the content creation and curation. So it's a mixture between creating your own content and finding other authoritative content that is going to be valuable to your followers and people who will end up looking up to you essentially within your niche and within your industry. Now, a big question is what to curate. You might not have a clue about where to go or what to look for in terms of other content relating to your business, to your niche or industry. There are lots of websites and tools available that can help you find content related to what you do, and these are just a few of them which you might want to note down, or you can refer back to the video later, of course, for reference. One site is called Scoop.it, scoop.it. That basically has a ton of content from a lot of different sources, mainly authoritative content. But basically what these sites do is try to find the most authoritative sources for you, and then you can go there and find kind of the best content on the web essentially. Quora is a bit different. It's not really content curation, but it's really good for kind of finding out what people in your industry and people interested in your niche are asking, the kind of the content that they're looking for and the questions that they're asking can give you a lot of indications about the kind of content you might want to provide them with. So it's a great site to become involved with, actually. So I would certainly recommend to kind of sign up with them and just see what comes through. And you can also start answering questions on there as well and positioning yourself as a thought leader kind of within Quora as well. So to take a look at that if you're not already involved with it, it's a really good site. Content Gems is a great site to watch as well in terms of content curation. They can send you emails, with content related to your niche, related to your industry, or you can look through their website. BuzzSumo is a great site. We're going to have a look at that in a little more depth in a minute or two. I'll just show you how that works, just as an example of how these websites do work. And Trapit, I believe, is a relatively new site, but essentially you kind of supply it with keywords that you're interested in, and it then begins to trap that content for you. And it looks through some of the most authoritative sources online related to the keywords that you enter in, and it supposedly improves over time. So it might be a good site to take a look at as well. So let's have a look at buzzsumo.com. And the rather kind of unique thing about this site is it actually shows you how much items of content have been shared across social media. So you can find out content, you can discover content that's been really popular. And what you're looking for is content that's going to really grab your audience attention, content that's going to make them engage essentially and attract other people within your marketplace to you. So it's really useful to kind of type in your keywords and just to see what comes up, and you can fairly quickly find content that you might want to share. But more importantly, perhaps you can find websites that may come up fairly frequently within your niche, and that basically indicates a fairly authoritative website that you can then use for feed mixes and publishing channels, which we'll get into shortly. So you can do things like sort based on how many times it's been shared on Facebook, how many on LinkedIn, Twitter, and so on. And you'll find content has radically different kind of sharing levels across different networks. So you can see different characteristics of the different networks. Facebook, for example, can be a little bit more entertainment based, whereas LinkedIn, of course, can be more business based and a bit more kind of serious and professional type content. And Twitter is generally kind of a rough mix between the two. It also gives you kind of Pinterest shares and Google shares, of course, and total overall shares. So you can order all of this by what you're most interested in. But as I said, one of the most kind of useful things from BuzzSumo is to actually identify websites related to your niche that contain content that's going to be really relevant to your own followers, to your own marketplace. So rather than the individual posts it comes back with, it can help to go and have a look at the individual websites to see if they have RSS feeds that you can then use within vWriter. And I'll go over how useful those are shortly. So there's an example here from TechCrunch, went straight onto the website, and towards the top was one of these RSS symbols. So if you see an icon looking like that, it generally means it's got an RSS feed. Not all websites will display that, even if they do have a feed. So what you can do is either look at the source of the website, so look at the source code of the website and just do a search for RSS, and you might well find a feed. Or within vWriter, when you enter in a source, you can just you can just copy and paste essentially the website URL, and it will try to identify a feed there for you, and it will tell you if it can't find one, or if it can find one, it will retrieve it for you. Most blogs, by the way, do have a feed. So if it's based on WordPress, usually the domain name followed by /feed FEED will bring up the feed if it does have one. So that's another way to try and find one for blocks. Okay, so you may not be aware these exist within vWriter, but there are done for you essentially curated content feeds. And what we do here is we basically look for items of, well, let's start that again. We basically look for at least 25 new items a day within certain categories. So authoritative kind of the best content on the web relating to 5 different categories, and then put them into different feeds. There's kind of one site for all, which will show content from across all the categories, and also content relating to arts and culture, business and marketing, health and fitness, science and technology, sports and recreation. So all separate feeds that you can then use. And you can basically take one of these and set them up as a source feed within your account. So to do that, you would go to the sources page, click the plus icon there and click add a source. You'll see a couple of tabs on the add new source page, and if you click the vWriter.com top shareable content tab, you'll basically see this. You can select the feed that you're interested in. You can also preview them on this page as well to see the type of content that comes through. So if your business is related to science and technology, for example, just roughly in that category, or you might have something relating to sport, you can select one of these feeds and either use it for a channel to curate content to your social profiles with, or you can use it to kind of manually curate content as well by kind of looking through that feed and seeing if there's anything suitable that you want to share to your followers, which we'll have a look at shortly. So this is an example of one of the feeds. So essentially I've added the science and technology one to my account in this example, clicked on it, and it will then show the source items. It automatically brings back the main picture from each post as well to show you a bit more about what's going on that page. So it's just a couple of examples here, and other feeds in your account, other sources in your account will also display in a similar way when you click on them and view the items. There's another type of feed within your account called a feed mix feed, and this is really useful for content curation, basically because you can mix a lot of different feeds from, say, different websites within your niche. For example, you may have found different sources using BuzzSumo that we looked at before, or other websites as you kind of trawl around looking for suitable content. And what you can do is add them all into a single feed within vWriter, and then use that as the basis of a publishing channel to auto curate content out, which we'll have a look at soon, or to do things like drag and drop posting as well, which we'll look at too. So it can be really useful to have all these feeds into one source essentially of content you can then use. So to set up a feed mix, you would basically do something very similar to what we did before with adding one of the done for you content feeds. So you'd go to the main sources page, click the icon and click to add feed mix. Enter in the name and description if you want to as well. You can just see my example here. So enter in whatever you want to help identify it for you. Once you've done that, you will then be able to add sources to your feed mix. So you'll be able to actually add other feeds that you've already added to your account, or you can add other feeds there and then from other websites as you want to, and you can add as many such feeds to a feed mix as you want to. So we'll have a quick look at what that looks like. There's a couple of items here, but these are basically from different sources within that single mix, within that single feed mix. So you can use it for drag and drop curation, which we'll have a look at very shortly, or publishing channels. So it just means you've got a mixture of feeds from a mixture of different content from lots of different feeds that are going to be relevant to your audience, and it can make content curation very easy. So in terms of drag and drop curation, what you can do is simply look down one of your sources, so click through to a source and see all the content listed down there. And then, as it shows here, you can literally just press down with the mouse and just drag it across to one of your profiles, drop it on the profile that you want to post to. So in this case, I just dragged it across and dropped it onto the vWriter Facebook profile there and let go. And what it does then is automatically set up a new post for you. So you'll see it bring back the content. You can then edit that as you want to. You may want to add hashtags and so on. You can add further profiles. So you kind of set it up with the initial profile, but then you can change it or add other profiles to it. And you can do the same thing from any content source within your account, whether it's a feed mix or some other content source that you've added. It could be, your own blog, even any feed that you've added to your account. You can then shrink the links that appear within that post. So if you just click the shrink link there, it will shrink it automatically using Bitly and just display the Bitly link. With publishing channels, that happens for you automatically, so that's done for you. If you're taking a more manual approach like this, then you can also do it by simply clicking the link. There was something else I was going to say on that which has completely left my mind at the moment, so I'll come back to that if I think about it. So once you've set that all up, you can then just click post. Literally, you can do this, within about 10 seconds once you get used to the process. It then individually schedules your post out for the different profiles you've set. On the screen, these happen to be the same, but you could have different publishing time windows for each different profile, and they could, be very different times. They're treated completely separately within the system. So you could have one in the evening and one kind of mid-morning if that's the best time for the profile that you've set up, and you've set the publishing time window to match that as well. I've just recalled what I was going to say. With the automated content feeds, the automated content curation, that does content curation for you to some extent, so it can kind of ease the process, but it doesn't quite replace the quality that you would get with manually curating content. So it can certainly, the automated side can certainly be added into the mix of what you do, but I'd also recommend to do some manual content curation as well, just to kind of find content that's really relevant for your audience, and that in turn will kind of boost your authority levels over time as well. You can use the content, the automated content curation side to kind of keep your social profiles looking active and looking busy, but I would kind of recommend to kind of supplement that with manual curation as well, really. So you can also do content curation using publishing channels, like I just mentioned, and this really just shows you the different types of source feed you can add in there. So you can set one up with a mix, a feed mix, any kind of standard feed. So that's just the RSS feed for the Copyblogger website, or there's the done for you content feed that we looked at earlier on. So you can set up a publishing channel with any of those types of feed to help with content curation. You can set frequency controls. So you may have a feed that publishes, multiple times a day, but it doesn't mean that you have to that you're then going to be publishing every item that comes up in that feed. So you will have you can specify a maximum number of items to use from the source within a certain time period. So I've just for purposes of the example, put in 13 days here, but it could be 1 week, 2 weeks, 26 days, three items every 3 weeks. Is up to you completely how you set that up. And in addition, you can also use keywords to control what comes through. So there could be certain content items that you find aren't going to resonate very well, or that your audience won't relate to very well within a certain source or feed mix even. So you can use negative keywords to kind of prevent certain content items being used, and also use keywords to say that you're only looking for particular content items, containing certain words. So for this example, I've just used the keywords content marketing, email marketing, and blogging just as examples. So it will only pull back content items that contain these words. If they don't contain those words, it won't use it for curation purposes, so it won't create posts for those. So let's move on to cross-stream publishing. And within your account, you may have noticed something called streams, which shows the content showing in your different social profiles. And apart from allowing you to kind of keep tabs on what's going into your social networks or onto your social profiles from within your account, instead of having to log on to the different networks, you can also use it for content curation. So again, you can drag and drop. Again, you would just press down with the mouse on top of the content item and drag it across to a particular profile. Again, I've used the vWriter Facebook here, so dragged it across, dropped it on there, and again it just creates the post for me in exactly the same way as we did before. Again, you'll be able to shrink the link, so the same thing completely, but it just enables you to instantly post essentially something from one profile to another. You may have something that you've tweeted out separately, and then you just want to put something similar onto LinkedIn or anything similar really. So that just shows you another capability of the system.